Firstly, we have all the amazing Starship developments.
Go for flight.
Here we see SN8, which performed its test flight on December 12th and went above and beyond, even surpassing Elon's dreams of the flight. The landing anomaly was caused by low pressure in the methane, which is a fuel header tank, which is a small spherical tank used when landing. This low pressure caused the engine to burn engine rich, which means it ate itself with the copper that some parts of the engine are made of, hence the green flame. SN9 was the next fully assembled Starship. It made its test flight on 2nd of February this year. It also had a spectacular ascent, but failed during landing as one of the engines failed to relight due to an issue with the oxygen preburner.
6 minutes, 10 seconds into flight, we're down beneath 1.5 kilometers. We're preparing to restart 2 engines, flip the vehicle vertical, then transition to 1 engine for the landing burn.
Three, 2, 1, ignition. We have liftoff.
This beast is SN10. It had its test flight on the 3rd of March. Literally almost everything was perfect. Almost. Some helium used to pressurize the header tank was sucked into the engine, causing lower than expected thrust from the Raptor engines, as, if you know your chemistry, helium is not very reactive, so will not make a good fuel. SN11 flew on the 30th of March, but due to thick fog at Boca Chica, nothing was visible. Barely even engine ignition was visible.
3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
The fire visible here was caused by a methane leak, which eventually fried the control computer of that engine. We got a cool look inside one of the
T++
tanks.
33 seconds. Starship test vehicle number 11 ascending over Starbase in South Texas.
1 kilometer altitude.
T++ 545, we've just passed through
And
1
sadly, this is
kilometer
where the
altitude,
stream
getting
cuts
ready
out,
for
but given the
relay.
noises, it did not land. Here is a rendering of what we believed happened during landing. Just last week, SN-15, the newest Starship, was rolled out to the pad. It is still awaiting a static fire, and if that occurs on Tuesday, the flight may happen on Wednesday, but the launch time is flexible, so it may launch later this week. I will update timings on Teams. This new vehicle is a total redesign with many upgrades. Elon has said SN-15 has hundreds of design improvements across structures, avionics/software, and engines. You may have wondered why SpaceX skipped SN12, 13, 14. This is because the SN8, 9, 10, and 11 flights went so well they decided to skip the SN12 to 14 because they were basically identical vehicles to SN8 to 11. Here is a video from Rocket Labs about their past and future aspirations.
Meet Electron, Rocket Lab's state-of-the-art all-carbon composite launch vehicle. This is a totally different way to build a rocket. Each one of these engines is 3D printed out of Inconel superalloy, and right now we can print around about one engine every 24 hours.
We're building the world's first private orbital launch site. We can launch more frequently than anywhere else on the planet.
This is flight on mission coord. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, liftoff. Liftoff confirmed.
Space is now open for business. It's not just a satellite, not just a launch vehicle, it's a full end-to-end solution. So I want to introduce you to Rocket Lab's very first Photon satellite, First Light. Electron is going reusable. If we can capture the vehicle in wonderful condition, we should be able to put it back on the pad and go again. I thought this was impossible. At Rocket Lab, we do what we say we're going to do. This is not a revolution of the big. This is a revolution of the small. When we say we're going to do something at Rocket Lab, we do it. Not just once, but over and over again. The Electron rocket defined a number of industry firsts. First carbon fibre rocket to orbit, in fact. Somebody told me once that was going to be impossible. And it's reusable. But then there's the engines. The Rutherford rocket engine, the very first 3D printed rocket engine ever to go into orbit. And in fact also the very first electric pump cycle rocket engine ever produced. And of course we didn't stop at rockets. We started building satellites too. Satellites to go to low Earth orbit, satellites to the Moon, to Mars and Venus and beyond. And there's a lot more to come. But first, I've got to take care of some business here. There's a lot of things at Rocket Lab that we said we were going to do that we've done. And a few things at Rocket Lab that we said we would never do, which we have also done. So I really think with this project, it's about time I finally ate the hat. Avoidance of all doubt, this hat is not tasty. But there's some things we said we would never do. But we're going to build a big rocket. It's called Neutron, and behind me is just the fairing. This is a purpose-built mega constellation building machine for all the mega constellations of today and of tomorrow. It's an 8-ton class launch vehicle, and of course, it's reusable. But one thing that's probably more exciting and most unusual for Rocket Lab is that this vehicle is capable of human spaceflight. Launching 2024.
We are starting the straighten up and fly right maneuver, where the spacecraft will jettison the entry balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the radar a better look at the ground.
Next logical step in our space program.
Applicant indicates chute deploy.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed, and we are seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 430 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
5,000 kilometers long.
Heat shield set.
Perseverance has now slowed to subsonic speeds, and the heat shield has been separated. This allows both the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
OBS valid.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution in part of terrain relative navigation.
TBA is nominal.
We have timing of the landing engine.
Back shell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
Here in safety Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars. We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver. Sky crane maneuver has started, about 20 meters off the surface.
It shouldn't be humans to Mars.
We're getting signals from MRO.
Mars in 10.
Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
Also on Mars, yesterday we achieved the first powered flight on another planet with the Ingenuity helicopter.
Between 1968 and 1972, America launched 9 human missions to the moon, 6 of which successfully touched down, allowing 12 men to walk on the lunar surface. NASA's next chapter of lunar exploration, called Artemis, has the task of not just going to the moon to create a long-term human presence on and around it, but also to prepare for ever more complex human missions to Mars. In short, everything we must be able to do here, we must first do here. So, what will an Artemis mission look like? Everything is designed and tested with our most important element in mind, the astronauts. This is their deep space, human-rated spacecraft called Orion, built in 3 parts. The crew module, where up to 4 astronauts will live and work throughout the flight. The service module, with life support systems for the crew and its own engine and fuel reserves. And a launch abort system, with engines capable of pulling the crew module to safety during launch should anything go wrong. To accomplish the task of launching our crew and heavy payloads, NASA is building the Space Launch System, comprising of a cargo hold, an exploration upper stage, a massive core stage, and 2 extended solid rocket boosters. Altogether, this is the world's most powerful rocket, and it exceeds the legendary Saturn V of the Apollo era in numerous ways. Sitting on the launch pad, the entire rocket, fully fueled, weighs just over 6 million pounds, 5.2 million of which is just the fuel. Once ignited, there is no stopping what comes next. All 4 RS-25 engines and the 2 solid rocket boosters come to life, thundering our crew upwards. 2 minutes after ignition, the solid rocket boosters are spent and released. 8 minutes after launch, the core stage is depleted and separated. The upper stage fires briefly, placing Orion into a parking orbit around the Earth. Here, the crew reconfigure the spacecraft and check systems to confirm everything is ready for deep space travel. With a go from mission control, the crew reignite the exploration upper stage engines to leave Earth entirely. The exact timing of this maneuver is critical to reach a speed that can escape Earth's gravitational pull, but also put Orion on a course that will intersect the Moon days later. Once this burn is complete, the upper stage of the SLS is jettisoned and the crew aboard Orion coast for several days toward all that awaits them at the Moon. Approaching the Moon, we see the fundamental differences between Artemis and Apollo. Instead of requiring Orion to serve as an expendable lunar command module or to carry a constrained lunar lander, the Artemis missions will take advantage of a different approach: pre-staging. Everything needed for lunar missions will be positioned in advance by commercial and international partners. This includes rovers, science experiments, and human-rated systems on the surface. But it also includes a dedicated lunar station in orbit around the Moon called Gateway. Here at this station, we can pre-stage a robust lunar lander and establish a strong communications relay. Designed with open standards, the Gateway can be expanded as new missions and partnerships develop, allowing multiple human missions on the Moon at the same time and enabling ongoing science to be conducted even between human missions. The Gateway is also capable of adjusting its orbit to allow access to every part of the Moon, something the Apollo missions could not do. But the real key in this approach is placing Gateway in a unique halo orbit to perfect the maneuvers needed for Mars missions. And with the growing list of commercial and international opportunities, Gateway is the ideal hub between Earth and all that lies beyond. Returning to our crew as they approach Gateway, the Orion must match the elliptical orbit of the station in order to successfully dock. Once on board, pre-selected crew members transfer to the lunar lander, while those assigned to Gateway remain on station. The lunar lander system itself is built for 3 unique steps: descending from the halo orbit of Gateway down to a low lunar orbit, descending from low lunar orbit to the surface, and once the lunar mission is complete, launching from the surface of the Moon and ascending all the way back to the orbiting Gateway. Once back aboard the Orion spacecraft and undocked from Gateway, the crew fire their engine once to break out of the halo orbit and once again to sling the spacecraft around the Moon, placing it on a multi-day trajectory back towards Earth. As they near the end of this journey, the service module is released, and the crew module is oriented heat shield first. Entering Earth's atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour, the friction of air slows Orion considerably, while also subjecting it to temperatures of 5,000 degrees. With the Orion now at just 300 miles per hour, a series of parachutes uniquely tested and produced for this moment deploy, decelerating the craft to just 20 miles per hour for splashdown. With each successful mission, Artemis ushers in the next wave of men and women to explore our Moon and prove that together we are ready to go beyond.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Artemis 1 will lift off from Launch Pad 39B at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida with 8.8 million pounds of thrust, provided by the most powerful rocket in the world, our Space Launch System rocket, or SLS. The uncrewed flight will be the first integrated test of SLS, our new Orion spacecraft, and exploration ground systems at Kennedy. Artemis 1 will send Orion beyond the Moon, 280,000 miles from Earth, farther than any human spacecraft has ever flown. After the upper stage of the rocket separates from Orion, the upper stage will deploy small satellites over several days to perform science experiments and technology demonstrations. Orion will make its multi-day outbound trip to the Moon, propelled by a service module provided by the European Space Agency. Engineers will test Orion's systems on the way to the Moon. Then, Orion will fly about 60 miles above the lunar surface, using the Moon's gravity and engines on the service module to enter a lunar orbit. After about a month and a total distance of over 1 million miles, Orion will return home, faster and hotter than any spacecraft has before. A primary goal of Artemis 1, ensure Orion safely returns to Earth before we fly with humans. When we do, we'll build our capability for sustainable lunar exploration, preparing us for missions farther into the solar system.
Initially, what we'd like to do is start establishing a presence on the Moon. So we're going to establish going back there on a regular basis, and then we'll end up setting up Gateway, and we would launch to the Gateway, and from Gateway land on the surface of the Moon.
We are there for weeks, months on end. And there we're going to be able to test out all the hardware and the habitats and the hatches and the suits and the rovers that'll allow us to prove out those technologies. The Moon will lead the way to Mars, and we should be there within the next couple of decades.
Let's meet some of the astronauts that will fly on the Artemis missions.
At NASA, we have always answered the innate call to go.
With Artemis,
we are going to stay.
Proving that humanity
can live on the Moon,
Mars, and other worlds,
and share the wonders of the solar system with all.
Our story is one of people.
All those who make this journey possible.
From advocates across communities,
to companies across industries,
to countries around the world,
we achieve this collective endeavor.
Our efforts create impact for all.
Technologies that revolutionize industries.
And jobs that bring prosperity to people.
The discoveries from space
benefit the way we live on Earth today.
And those from the Moon
will create a better future
for generations to come.
But to do that,
we must go.
Hi, I'm Chell Lindgren.
My name is Raja Chari.
Kayla Barron.
Kate Rubens. Hi, I'm Christina Cook.
NASA astronaut Joe Acaba.
Jessica Amir.
Woody Hoberg.
Ann McLean.
Stephanie Wilson.
My name is Johnny Kim.
Nicole Mann.
Victor Glover.
Jessica Watkins.
Hi, I'm Matthew Dominic.
Jasmine Mogbelli.
Frank Rubio.
Scott Tingle.
This is what we do.
This is what we will do.
Let's go.
We go to the Moon to learn how to live on other planets.
For the benefit of all.
This Thursday there will be a crewed mission to the International Space Station. This mission is called Crew 2 and is a continuation of NASA's and SpaceX's commercial crew program. It will bring 4 astronauts to the International Space Station, 2 from NASA, 1 from the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, and another from the European Space Agency. It will launch at 10:10 a.m. on Thursday.
Three, 2, 1.